Welcome to Gamecock Pod Live.
For the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be committed to the University of Gamecock.
This is Rogers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rogers scores! Jackie Bradley Jr. delivers for the Gamecocks. Lost it up, looking for Kelly. Touchdown! Can you believe it?
And South Carolina is sending shockwaves through the SEC.
Frederick! Plays it in at the buzzer! That's a win! Unbelievable! I don't believe it!
And now, live from Studio 54 of the Gamecock Pod Studios, here's the Cockfather himself, Keith Alsep.
All right, everybody, welcome into a great show coming to you today, Gamecock Pod Live, with my special guest, Jordan Kaye, just back from Cuba, and now in Hoover, Alabama at the SEC tournament. He will join us shortly. Today is May 22nd, the year of our Lord 2024. This is episode number 1488 of Gamecock Pod Live, and we're going to get right into it with your Nana's Porch news, notes, and headlines, brought to you by the award-winning full-service catering company servicing the greater Charlotte area, Nana's Porch. They're your go-to for all your catering needs, whether it's a banquet, a wedding, a corporate event. Now with the warm weather, the big backyard bash with the whole hog barbecue on the weekends, whatever your catering needs, Nana's Porch has got you covered. If you have an event that requires a food trailer, Nana's Porch voted among the top 3 in Charlotte by the local newspaper poll. And as we all know, the award-winning pimento cheese voted both number 1 and number 2 in the meat and cheese category by the North Carolina Specialty Foods Association. I strongly urge you to support this Gamecock-owned and operated business by going to nanasporch.com. That's NANASPORCH.com. Get in touch with my good friend Chris Payne. Tell him I sent you and support this Gamecock owned and operated business. Also, jump in the Nana's Porch chat box. Leave your comments, your questions. After news, notes, and headlines and a rant of the week, we will go to our interview with Jordan Kaye, recorded just a little bit earlier this morning as he had to get to the ballpark for South Carolina's 2 p.m. game against Arkansas. And then on the other side of that, we'll take a look at the upcoming Summer of Shane and the official visit slate for the Gamecocks. And LSU is pounding Kentucky, one of the teams that South Carolina did not need to win. They beat Georgia yesterday 9-1, and now they are up 11-0 on Kentucky in the 8th inning. All right, let's jump into it. Yesterday, South Carolina baseball got up off the mat, snapped a 6-game SEC losing streak with a 10-5 win over Alabama in Hoover. The Gamecocks were the 10 seed. Alabama was the 7 seed. Gamecocks did not get off to a good start. They were down 3-0 early, and then a 6-run third inning all via the long ball, really separated the Gamecocks here and led to the win. South Carolina trailed 3-0. You go to the third inning, Gavin Casas hits a solo home run. Ethan Petrie hits a solo home run. And then Gamecocks get the bases loaded, and Dalton Reeves hits a grand salami to make it 6-3. Gamecocks scored 3 more runs over the next 3 innings. And South Carolina rolled to the win. Cole Messina, 3 for 4 on the day with a double, a home run, a walk, 3 RBIs, 2 runs scored. And just a great day for him. He was also named as a Buster Posey Award semifinalist. He's one of 16 semifinalists for this award that goes to the best catcher in the country. These are 16 finalists, so he's I guess a semifinalist. Those will be announced on June the 6th. 3 catchers will be invited to Wichita, Kansas, with the winner being announced June 26th during the Greater Wichita Sports Banquet and the Buster Posey Award presentation. The National Collegiate Catcher of the Year Award was established in 2000. So congratulations to Cole Messina. Gamecock pitching showed up. Maybe not early. Dylan Askew gave up some runs. They got him out. Then you had that big 6-run third inning. They brought in Matthew Becker. He gave up a couple runs. But then Chris Veach goes the final 5 2/3 innings, pitches shutout ball, and was very emotional on the mound. So we've been waiting for Chris Veach. He was supposed to be the closer, the shutdown guy, and I mean, he went weeks without ever throwing a meaningful pitch. So Gamecocks today take on number 10 Arkansas, the SEC West champion. Ranked number 10 in the nation, number 2 in the RPI. They are 43-12. And the Gamecocks are going to have their hands full. Gamecocks will trot out on the mound Eli Jones, who is 3-4 with a 5.49 ERA. 60 2/3 innings pitched with 49 strikeouts and 18 base on balls. Arkansas, Gamecocks may be catching a break here because Arkansas's pitchers have been locked down good. But you're not getting one of their main guys today. They're expected to trot out seldom used sophomore right-handed pitcher Ben Bobby, who has been used out of the bullpen. He's made a couple of midweek starts. He's 2-1 with a 6.00 ERA, just 24 innings pitched, 31 strikeouts, 9 base on balls. Other winners yesterday in the win or go home portion of the tournament. As I said, number 11, LSU, who's on the bubble. They take down Georgia 9-1. Now they're up on Kentucky 11-0. That's not good for the Gamecocks. Obviously, South Carolina beat Alabama. Vanderbilt did take down Florida in the 8-9 game, 6-3. That was probably good for the Gamecocks. But then number 12, Ole Miss, Well, Mississippi State, they beat Ole Miss 2-1. Mississippi State, the 5 seed. And so today, right now, LSU and Kentucky's going to the bottom of the 8th. It's 11-0. It looks like they will advance. The next game will be South Carolina versus the 2 seed Arkansas. Then Tennessee and Vanderbilt at 4:30. And then number 4, Texas A&M, and number 5, Mississippi State tonight in the nightcap. And again, this is the double elimination portion of the SEC tournament. South Carolina should they win, well, then they would get the day off and they would play on Friday in the winner's bracket. So if they lose, however, then they will get the loser of game 7, which is Tennessee and Vanderbilt. Well, actually, if the Gamecocks win, they'll play tomorrow at 4:30 against LSU, barring a major catastrophe. All right, Gamecock softball. They finished 36-24, 8-16 in the SEC. They lost in the finals of the Duke Regional. I will have more on women's softball in just a minute. Marcus Lattmore was among 10 inductees into the South Carolina Athletic Hall of Fame on Monday, including former Chester and Harvard great Allison Feaster, who was the number 1 player in the country. She went to Harvard. She was a first-round pick in the WNBA. She played with Dawn Staley in Charlotte. She's now the vice president of the Boston Celtics. Clemson All-America and Greenville native golfer Lucas Glover, former College of Charleston and NBA standout Anthony Johnson, Ivory Latta from York, who again was a big-time player, went to North Carolina, played in some Final Fours, coached with North Carolina. Her jersey was retired by the Tar Heels. Former Clemson baseball coach Jack Leggett, former South Carolina high school star Clifford Ray, who spent 10 years in the NBA and has coached in the NBA, spent 4 years with the Boston Celtics, helping develop Kendrick Perkins, Leon Poe, and others. Was instrumental in the 2008 Boston Celtics NBA championship, and then Winsboro and Coastal Carolina, and former NFL quarterback Tyler Thigpen. They are among the inductees to the Hall of Fame. Latest regional projections today have South Carolina in baseball as a 3 seed in either number 6 seed Clemson Regional or the number 9 seed NC State Regional. Of course, that could change depending on the outcome of these next 2 games for the Gamecocks. All right, so in my interview with Jordan, we'll get into how historically bad South Carolina baseball has been under Mark Kingston. But I want to talk about how historically bad South Carolina softball has been under Beverly Smith. Okay, South Carolina's been playing softball since before women's sports were an NCAA sport. They started playing softball in 1972. They went to the AIAW College World Series 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times between 1972 and 1981. In 82, they went to the NCAA tournament. In 83, they went to the Women's College World Series. Joyce Compton became the coach in 1987. She had a great run at South Carolina. I mean, she was winning 46, 47, 49, 51, 54, 52, 53 games per season. The Southeastern Conference adopted softball in 1997. That year, the Gamecocks went 63-5, 25-1 in the SEC. They were the SEC champs, the SEC tournament champs, and they went to the College World Series. 2 years later, in 99, 49-21 in 2000, SEC tournament champs. She continued to go 18 from 2001 through 2003. She went 18-8, 20-10, 18-10 in the SEC, won over 40 games, went to the NCAA tournament in 2007. She went to a super regional. Okay, and then in 2012, after going over the last 4 years, from 2009 to 2011, well, I guess that'd be 3 years. 6-21 in the SEC, 1-27 and just 11-40, and then she was fired and Beverly Smith came in. She struggled. Okay, South Carolina has gone to the NCAA tournament 9 times under Beverly Smith. They've advanced beyond the regionals only once. That was in 2018. The 1 year Beverly Smith had a winning record in the SEC. Okay, in all of her seasons at South Carolina, since 2011 through 2024, let's cancel 2020 because of COVID, Smith has had 1 winning season in the SEC and is an underwhelming 93-195 in SEC play, and they just took out in the Duke Regional. Okay, the ACC has been playing softball less than 10 years. Okay. Duke named Marissa Young, who was an All-America pitcher at Michigan, is their head coach. On July 29, 2015. Okay, they didn't start playing softball until 2018. And her first 2 years, they suffered. But even in 2020, in the COVID shortened season, 23-4, but the last 4 years, okay, Duke, 44-12 ACC champs, national seed. 2022, 44-11, 19-3 in the ACC. Super regionals, national seed. 2023, 48-12, 19 Okay, and then this season, Duke goes 50-6, 20-4. They win the ACC. They're going to the Supers again. All right, Ray Tanner, it's time to make a change. Okay, we appreciate all you've done, Beverly. Go get Marissa Young from Duke. Okay, you want to be in the national conversation like most other SEC programs are. Basically, every SEC team gets in the NCAA tournament because it's the best conference in the country. Now you're adding Texas and Oklahoma, and South Carolina's fallen further and further behind, even though they've been playing softball for 50 years as a sport. All right, it is time to go get Marissa Young as your next softball head coach. She's young. She's successful. She's a great recruiter. And there's no reason why Duke should have a better softball program than the Gamecocks. All right, a couple more news notes and headlines, and then we'll bring in Jordan Kaye on the other side. We'll talk about the Summer of Shame and the football visits. That game has gone final in Hoover. LSU takes down Kentucky in 8 innings, 11-0, a run rule. All right, Lamont Paris is anticipating recruiting news both to finish out the 2024 roster. Of course, that spot was open when Trent Noah asked out of his letter of intent and wound up signing with Kentucky. Gamecocks hosted Oak Hill, 6'11" big man Jamie Vinson, a native of Austin, Texas. He then went to Rutgers and Kentucky. Sounds like Kentucky may hold him off, or they could try to get him to be a walk-on and use NIL money. He could announce as soon as today. And then on Friday, 2025 power forward, 6'8", 230-pound Erlanger, Kentucky native E.J. Walker, a national top 150 player, will announce his decision Friday evening. And he's got a Final Four of Purdue, Ohio State, Wisconsin, and South Carolina. The Gamecocks were his most recent official visit. And the Wisconsin board and their insiders seem to believe it's probably going to come down to the Badgers and the Gamecocks, and they fear the former Badger assistant, Lamont Paris, and the Gamecocks. And I'm not saying they are going to be the pick, but I do know there is some confidence. There is internal confidence, but this one is just too close to call. And so we'll see what happens. Lamont Paris could be on the verge of filling out his roster with Jamie Vinson. We'll have to see how that one goes, and we'll have to see how it goes on Friday with Kentucky power forward E.J. Walker. What happens there? Does Kentucky and Mark Pope, do they come in after evaluating him this summer and offer him like they did with Trent Noah? I mean, you kind of wish Calipari would have stayed at Kentucky. But we will see. All right, so jump in the Nana's Porch chat box. Leave your questions, your comments on Gamecock Baseball, softball, the Summer of Shame, whatever. I'll answer on the other side, as well as give you the latest on expected official visits for South Carolina as the Summer of Shame gets underway next weekend. All right, here is my interview from earlier today with Jordan Kaye. And we welcome back in the Gamecock Pod Live the freshly vacationed, now back to work in Hoover. But I got to say, Jordan, you are living the dream. I mean, first you get to play Augusta National.
Yeah.
Then you go to Cuba for vacation. What was it like, and did you run into Fredo while you were there? Was he still wandering around looking for a boat back to the mainland?
No. It was awesome, though. We had a good time. It was really fun. We did Havana, and then we went to like some place in the mountains where they grow tobacco and stuff, and got to watch people put together cigars, zip line, horseback, all that stuff. And everything was super cheap, but man, there's no internet. The electricity just goes out. I mean, it's interesting being in a communist country for sure.
No doubt. All right. Well, it feels like Gamecock Baseball had been held hostage in a communist country until yesterday.
Yeah. Holy cow.
But first, I do want to talk about the great article that you published earlier in the week on Marcus Lattmore. Obviously, a beloved figure, widely known in the state of South Carolina since he, by the time he was a sophomore at Burns, he was a superstar. He was the number one running back in the country. He comes in, he leads South Carolina the SEC East Division crown as a true freshman and has all these accolades. The expectations are basically confirmed.
Yeah.
And then the sophomore year, the injury at Mississippi State, torn ACL. But then the following year in 2012, and I was at Williams-Brice Stadium that day along with my wife against Tennessee, just the career-ending injury. And I guess he's kind of taken the road less traveled the last few years because he did try to rehab that injury. He did get drafted by Jim Harbaugh and the 49ers. They gave him 2 years to give it a go. He couldn't come back. He came back to South Carolina. He became the head coach at Heathwood Hall. Then he joined Will Muschamp's staff. But then in 2019, as he's getting ready to be inducted into the University of South Carolina Athletics Hall of Fame, he kind of had a reckoning with himself. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so unlike you, I didn't know, much about Marcus Lattmore. I grew up kind of remembering what he did in the Alabama game. I just remember being a freshman in high school when that injury happened. And me and all my friends are like, holy crap. Did you see that? Oh my gosh. And that's the days before Twitter. So you're it's not like we were watching the game live. And so you're kind of does anyone see that? Was it really as bad as everyone says it was? And you're going through it. I'm like, holy cow. And then I remember him getting drafted and hoping that, he worked out for the Niners. So I didn't know a whole lot about him. And then kind of get here and start reading about him. I'm like, holy, he moved to Oregon? What? And just going through it. And this was a good time to catch up with him. But yeah, he was saying the Hall of Fame thing, man. He was just and I don't know. It almost sounded like someone in a depressive state, hazy, almost seeing the world through black and white type thing. And he said, these people are all telling me I'm a saint. They're all telling me how great I was and how I'm the greatest human being ever. And I'm the Hall of Famer or whatever. And he's like, I had to look at myself in the mirror and be like, no, I'm not. And he was saying there was, hey, I was at points, I'm not proud of, some sex addictions that I had and some womanizing and things that, when I was in college and things I did to the opposite sex and how can I look at these people who think I'm a saint and knowing I'm not? And man, that was just really powerful to me. And then, he moves to Oregon, kind of wants a fresh start. He had been to Oregon, once for a Nike thing when he was at Burns and liked it and really enjoyed the West Coast when he was with the Niners, that just no one really knew who he was. He could almost have a fresh start, no expectations placed upon him. So he moves to Oregon in 2020 and really picks up poetry, to the point where these are not these crappy haikus you're bringing home in 5th grade. It's legit and it's actually very, very good, which I wasn't sure. I was like, oh, I'm not a good poet. I wouldn't know what to do. And then I start reading, I'm like, holy crap. It's legit. And not only that, but he does. There's a difference between writing poetry and then spoken word poetry, which I've learned. And apparently there's a season. So there's qualifiers and competition, and he goes through all that, and he was the best in Oregon and will go to nationals in Georgia next month to compete for spoken word poetry, which is more theater than it is the poetry part. Well, it's the poetry, but I mean, there's theater. He has a coach and practices, and it's nuts.
Yeah, so obviously, being recruited as a high-profile superstar, I mean, I can remember when Lane Kiffin was the coach at Tennessee, Burns had 5 D1 guys, and Lane Kiffin sent the recruiting hostesses, 3 of them down there one weekend to try to hook up with Marcus Lattmore. I mean, look, I've coached guys, I've known guys, I've been around it. I mean, when you are the high profile guy, there's nothing off limits. Women are literally throwing themselves at you. And, it's kind of hard to say no, but for him to talk about the dread and the shame of looking at himself in the mirror and facing up to certain proclivities and addictions that he had, none drug related. Mm-hmm. That just part of that comes with being the star athlete and having, it just thrown at you 24/7. So he and his wife, Miranda, they did leave. They did go to the West Coast. I do know one experience he had, I believe it was in Nebraska. They got pulled over. And it finally hit him, he was no longer Marcus Lattmore, the star.
Yeah.
He was a black man being pulled out of his car and thrown to the ground.
Yeah.
By police officers. And so I kind of think, and I'm not trying to psychoanalyze him because I'm not a psychiatrist. I did minor in psychology. It seems like he's tried to get away from who people thought he was and expected him to be, to try to really find himself now 10 years removed from all of that. And I just have to think part of that is because of the expectations and the fame and the glory, and then just the injuries and the inability to be able to do what he loved to do.
Yeah. No, I think that's a pretty good, I think that's fair, kind of running from, he calls it number 21. That's kind of his football persona. So in his eyes, there's 2 people. There's number 21, which is what he will always be in South Carolina. And then there's Marcus Lattmore. And it's hard to be Marcus Lattmore in Columbia, South Carolina. So you kind of have to leave. And in that sense, it makes more sense. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, you're in the public eye since you were 16 years old. And he's one of those rare guys. And in some ways, the injury almost helps the public persona because more people know him, more people like him. And then it always leaves that what if of well, what if Marcus didn't get hurt? And it's just like you're even more beloved. You're even more on a pedestal. And man, that would be so hard. Where everywhere you go, people just think you're the greatest human being of all time. And I mean, he did it for 10 years. So it's not like he ran from it right away. But man, I would feel like after a while it'd be tough.
No doubt. So talk to us about his go-to poem, Popcorn Man.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard the song Hurricane by Bob Dylan.
I have heard that song.
That's what it reminded me a lot of, is like a way of like bringing in this historical event without just in a different way that kind of brings in a new audience to it. And it was the lynching of Willie Earl from the 40s, which I had never heard of. But man, I heard it on his Instagram, and it's like he has this really deep baritone where it's like hard to even describe, but it's like a theater performance, and he like transforms into this different character of like a hawker at a lynching basically, and man, just like opens it up like popcorn. It's pretty good. It's very interesting, but then just the way that he like the writing is so like, as someone who has to write for a living, like the writing is like unbelievable. And I just thought it was so good. And it was one that he like kind of went into a little more detail of like, yeah, it's kind of risky. I'm not sure, how much I want to use it. But it's risky because it's like so different. Like it's hard to like, you have to like listen to it a couple times to be like, what is he trying to do? And he's not using his voice. He's almost like doing it from a narrator's voice. And so that's different too. But yeah, it's a really interesting like depiction of like the lynching of Willie Earl, which he grew up kind of hearing about, but you're hearing about it from like a kid's point of view, so you don't know much. But the lynching took place probably 40 miles from where he went to high school. The courthouse where all the men were acquitted was probably 20 minutes from his high school.
Well, I'll tell you exactly where it was. It was in Pickens, South Carolina. That was the county seat. Willie Earl he was from Greenville, but he was arrested and brought to Pickens County Jail.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure charged with raping a white woman. And the crowd came and they took him out of the jail and they lynched him. And quite frankly, in the Jim Crow South of that era, lynchings were very common. And so there was normally a guy from Pickens County who's grown up hearing these stories, as vile and as disgusting as they are, that normally there'd be a guy selling popcorn and peanuts and drinks, just like at a football game. And he was the popcorn. That was the popcorn man.
That actually happened?
Yes.
Oh my God. I thought he was just trying to make a metaphor of like, oh, these things were so common that they would just sell popcorn. No. Oh my God.
I mean, at the public lynchings, there were literally because the crowds would draw and they would wait for them to bring them out.
Wow.
I mean, it's almost like being in a dog fight or a chicken fight, except there's no fighting going on. A man's life is getting ready to be snuffed out. And so, so I'm really happy for him. I'm happy for his wife, Miranda, for them to get away from everything. And sounds like he's trying to qualify for the Poetry Olympics out there.
Yeah, he's going to nationals, I think June 5th.
All right, good stuff. So, and Marcus was not able to be at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. His mother accepted the award on his behalf. Mm-hmm. And Marcus Lattmore's mom is the only one that could get Steve Spurrier to dance on the in-home visit. They had to teach him the cha-cha slide.
Oh man.
That was one of the reasons why that and South Carolina didn't offer him any money. So believe that or not. All right. So Gamecock Baseball, they were sitting right there, 33-15, 13-11 in the SEC. They get absolutely boat raced at home by Georgia football scores, and then twice by Tennessee. They get swept instead of being 16-14 or 17-13.
Yeah.
They ended up 13-17. They're the 10 seed. They faced number 7 Alabama yesterday, and they get down 3-0, and you're like, well, here we go. The season is coming to an end, and then all of a sudden, the third inning, Gavin Cassis hits a home run. Ethan Petrie hits a home run. Alabama pitching can't get anybody out. They load the bases. And so, just so everybody's clear, South Carolina on the season with the bases loaded was hitting 198 and had no grand slams. Not against Winthrop, not against the Citadel, not against East Tennessee, certainly not against an SEC team. And that guy hung a curveball that I think if I could have almost hit out down there. And Dalton Reeves just mashed it.
Yeah.
He got all of it. And all of a sudden you go from down 3-0 to up 6-3. And then the Gamecocks scored 3 runs over the next 3 innings. And Chris Beach, the guy we've been waiting for all year, he finally showed up yesterday.
Yeah, that was by far, I think, their most, I don't know about complete game, but just the most impactful game. Like that Dalton Reeves home run, biggest hit of the season. That Chris Veach pitching performance, the biggest pitching performance of the year. I mean, Chris Veach, this has been a guy who it's like he came into this season. It's like, all right, this is the closer. This is our guy. I mean, he's just going to carry the bullpen. And it's like he'd go weeks sometimes and you'd be like, I don't know if he threw a meaningful pitch like in a week, like a weekend, next weekend. I don't know if he threw a meaningful pitch. It's like he's just been used so oddly that you're just like, I don't even know what he does anymore. There was the against Tennessee where they were down 1, had some runners in scoring position, and it was like, this should be a moment that Chris Veach comes in. They put a freshman in, the Tennessee hits a grand slam, and you're like, what is Chris Veach being used for? And then it was so great to see him come in yesterday. And, you know, Kingston was talking about, hey, we were just trying to get him, man, if he can get us 2 to 3 innings, God, that's great. We will be very happy. And he just ends up going and going. And I thought this was impressive from Mark Kingston and his staff of not trying to play the analytics game, not trying to play, you know, trying to outsmart themselves, but just be like, this guy's rolling. Let's keep him in. And they kept him in. Man, he almost goes 6 innings. He finishes the game, only allows 3 hits, no earned runs, was spectacular. Kept Alabama just off balance. His changeup, I mean, the Alabama guys were like talking about this thing as if it was Mariano's splitter. They were like, we've never seen anything like it. We couldn't hit it. We were sitting back waiting for it, and we still couldn't hit it. He was spectacular. And then the offense just finally coming through a little bit. Cole Messina has a home run, an RBI, 2 RBI double. Ethan Petrie hits 1. Gavin Casas hits 1. And then, you know, the Dalton Reeves one I thought was just so important to give South Carolina some confidence. Hey, we've got the lead. We're here. And, you know, heck, that would have been the winning hit if they didn't. That was the winning hit, I guess, because Alabama only scored 5. So great all-around performance. I thought this is a good sign of things of moving forward.
So you jump out of the frying pan. It was win or go home yesterday. So now the Gamecocks go into double elimination.
Yeah.
And your reward for beating Alabama is you get to play Arkansas, who's 43-12. They won the SEC West, number 10 in the polls. They were number 1 for a good part of the season. They're number 2 in the RPI. But here's the thing, Arkansas, Dave Van Horn's team this year, they have great pitching. And South Carolina's not getting one of their top pitchers today, at least to start. Seldom used right-handed pitcher, Ben Bybee.
Yep.
Who is 2-1 with an ERA of 6. He's only pitched 24 innings on the season. He does have 31 strikeouts and 9 base on balls. And South Carolina's throwing the guy that was their ace for most of the season, Eli Jones, who, quite frankly, has not been good of late. And that's an understatement. But Arkansas is one of the worst hitting teams in the SEC. South Carolina's bats, I mean, it hadn't really been their bats that have cost them in these games. They've scored a lot of runs. It's been their pitching staff. And so we were talking offline. I thought South Carolina was dead in the water. I mean, I don't know what has to happen for Mark Kingston to survive. Personally, I would have probably fired him on Sunday and let Monty Lee ride it out. But the buyout for Mark Kingston on June the 1st drops from $800,000 to $400,000, which, quite frankly, with the new TV deal and the revenue distribution, is peanuts.
Where'd you see that number? I had it different. I had it at it drops from 200 to 100.
John Whittle from the Big Spur. Oh no, it was not. It was Dave Cloninger from the Post and Courier.
Okay, I got
800,000 prior to June 1st, 400,000 after June the 1st, and so look, I'm never going to pull against my alma mater. I mean, you know, and South Carolina baseball is judged on the postseason. But it's been a long time since South Carolina's been to Omaha. And, you know, as things stand today, South Carolina will most likely be a 3 seed in a regional, which means they're probably not getting out of the regional. And so, you know, what are your thoughts about what Mark Kingston and this team has to do for him to get another year? Because I don't even know, barring a miracle run to Omaha, if anything is going to be good enough after having another losing season in the SEC.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because it is the SEC. And I know South Carolina expects to be, you know, one of the top 4 seeds, hosting a regional, hosting a super every year. He's gotten to 2 supers. I mean, if he were somehow able to come out and get to another super this year, I think he's probably safe. And then with that, it's just tough, man, because I always wonder what Ray thinks with these baseball hires. I mean, he let Chad Holbrook go pretty quick, kind of realized that wasn't working. But he's given, you know, a lot of people thought Mark Kingston was going to be gone after the 2022 season, and he stayed. He led South Carolina to a regional in 2023. And so, you know, there's part of me that's unsure. Does Ray give some of the baseball guys, knowing, you know, what it takes, how good the SEC is, does he give them a little leniency with these things, especially knowing there is still a $400,000 buyout? So I'm not sure. I think if he gets to a super, the questions probably go away a little bit. But until then, it's one of those things that it's just so many fans are going crazy, and it's hard to know what Ray is thinking, given that, you know, there are 11 SEC teams that might make the tournament. And you look at like an LSU that just won the College World Series a year ago, is on the bubble. And Florida, who was just in the final a year ago, is on the bubble to even make the tournament. I mean, this is a hard league that a lot of teams are, a lot of really good teams that won a national championship or were competing last year. can hardly even make the NCAA tournament. So it's tough. I don't know. It'll kind of depend on the next 2 weeks, I would say.
All right, so let me give you some historical perspective here.
Okay.
So every year, Mark Kingston has been the coach at South Carolina and played a full season. Okay, we're throwing out 2020 and COVID.
Yeah.
He's lost at least 21 games every season. That only happened twice in the previous 17 seasons prior to Mark Kingston. Okay, sub 500 in the SEC for the 5th time in the last 9 years. Now, that does carry over a little bit to Chad Holbrook. That had only happened 4 times in the previous 31 seasons. Okay, South Carolina baseball, 40-win seasons were the norm. That was the expectation. Kingston's only done it once.
Yeah.
And no trips to Omaha. And I'm just saying, at some point, the rubber's got to meet the road, because this is South Carolina's most tradition-rich program, at least prior to Dawn Staley arriving, who now has 3 national championships. Okay, South Carolina baseball has been historically good since the 1970s.
Yeah.
When Bobby Richardson was the coach. They finished national runners-up in 1975 to Texas, in 1977 to Arizona State, which you probably have heard the guy named Bob Horner.
Oh, yeah.
He played on that team. He went straight from college to the bigs, to the Atlanta Braves, and I used to sit in Turner Field and just watch him hit bombs.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are some fans that don't even want Ray Tanner to make this decision.
It's fair.
And I do think after 2022, South Carolina could have moved on. But I think the desired candidates did not want to take the position because they didn't feel like Ray Tanner was going to be there very much longer.
Yeah.
And so if you're South Carolina, you're kind of in a quandary there. You've got an older athletic director. Every year people think it may be his last year. And you got this program which he reached heights no other coach has ever done until Dawn Staley, who's now won 3 national championships. Tanner won back-to-back and took Carolina to 3 straight championship series from 2010 to 2012. And so it's kind of a quandary. The projections right now have South Carolina as a 3 seed in the Clemson Regional.
Yeah.
If Clemson ends your season up there, I just have to think that's not going to bode well for Mark Kingston or Ray Tanner, because Eric Bakich, who came from Michigan, wanted the South Carolina job.
Yeah.
When Mark Kingston got it, and Tanner dragged it out, waiting on O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
Florida, they win the national championship. Bakich takes his name out, and now he's come to Clemson, and Clemson's going to be a national seed, and South Carolina is not.
Yeah.
All right, so I know you got to head over to the ballpark. Tell us what you got coming up on GoGamecocks.com and the state.
Yeah, well, obviously monitoring things from Hoover this week. And then I think we'll be one of the few outlets out at the SEC spring meetings in Destin next week. And so try and catch up with Shane Beamer, Lamont Paris, Don Staley, and, of course, Ray Tanner, and kind of talk to him about the state of affairs at South Carolina. So we'll have that coming all next week.
All right, so just so you know, you'll be in L.A., that's called Lower Alabama, also referred to as the Redneck Riviera down there. But
is that Destin?
Yeah, the Destin, Pensacola area is called L.A., Lower Alabama.
Lower Alabama. Okay.
But beautiful beaches, particularly if there hadn't been a storm and the seaweed comes in, the crystal white sand, the blue water. I mean, it's awesome.
Okay. That's good to know. I'm excited.
All right, my man. Well,
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks for joining us as always, and we'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, that was my man Jordan Kaye from Go Gamecocks. And so I know many of you have been to Panama City, Destin, Pensacola. It is referred to as the Redneck Riviera. But Destin and Sandestin, beautiful beaches, beautiful sand, the water clear. One of my favorite spots to be. All right, so this weekend will be the final weekend until the end of June, when there will not be prospects on campus for official visits or camps. Camps get underway May 31st. That coincides with the first official visit weekend. And so the Gamecocks are scheduled to host 11 or 12 official visitors that weekend. 5-star defensive end Jared Smith, 6'6", 235, the number 19 player in the country in the 24/7 sports composite. South Carolina is considered by many to be the leader here. He's already visited Ole Miss. He's going to visit Georgia, Florida State, and some others. I'm not going to go into all the visits, but the Gamecocks and Ole Miss, I think, are the top two right now on the 5-star defensive end that Sterling Lucas has put in a tremendous amount of work. The Gamecocks are the leader for Virginia Beach 4-star offensive lineman Jalen Gilchrist, 6'5", 310. He is the number 91 player in the country, and I'm putting him on commitment watch that weekend. He is scheduled, I think, to visit Maryland on the 21st and maybe Georgia, but South Carolina, they've had him on campus many times, and this is a guy that South Carolina is really in pole position for. 4-star cornerback Shamari Earls, who committed to the Gamecocks prior to the Garnet and Black Spring game from the Richmond area, Chester, Virginia. 6'2", 180. He is now the number 68 player in the country in the 24/7 sports rankings. He makes an official visit. 4-star offensive lineman Cortez Smith, 6'3", 310. From Lilburn, Georgia. I would categorize the Bulldogs as the team to beat, as he is a top priority for Georgia in this class. 4-star safety Jaden Blair. Gamecocks on the board in the top of the first. 2-out single for Parker Noland. Gamecocks go up 1-0. They got runners on the corners with 2 outs after Arkansas's already made a visit to the mound. Blair, 6'4", 190 from Winston-Salem. He's a top 165 player. I think North Carolina and Notre Dame and Penn State are probably the top 3 there, but you're going to shoot your shot. 4-star wide receiver Malik Clark, 6'1", 190, now the number 209 player in the 24/7 sports rankings. He ran a 10.55 100 meters in the upper state track meet. This is going to be a border battle, South Carolina, North Carolina, and then NC State. But it's probably going to be Tar Heels or Gamecocks, and you want to get him. 4-star defensive tackle Caleb Williams, who's committed to you, 6'6", 260 from Chesterfield, Virginia. He's a defensive tackle. 3-star Hendersonville, North Carolina edge. Tayshawn Austin, 6'4", 220. I don't think you're the leaders there. You're going to take your shot. Then very intriguing, Irmo, quarterback. A.J. Brand, 6'2", 205. A guy that could be a big safety or maybe even grow into a linebacker. He will make a visit. He's been offered. South Carolina likes him for defense, but I do think they are willing to give him a chance at quarterback, and so we'll have to see what happens. He will visit Virginia Tech. They like him as a quarterback, and so we'll have to see. I mean, at South Carolina with an in-state guy, you got to be truthful. Okay, out-of-state guys, not so much. Okay, 3-star center, Isaac Sowles Jr., 6'2", 295 from Louisville, male. He will visit the Gamecocks. I think this is shaping up to be a South Carolina NC State battle. And I think the Gamecocks are in pretty good shape going into this visit. I would also say you're in great shape for 3-star Snellville, Georgia outside linebacker, Jaden Breaker, 6'4", 210. South Carolina really liked the junior film. Had him on campus, have gone to see him. They really like him. He will be in. I think South Carolina's the leader for him. And the latest addition to the visitor list for May 31st is Alexandria, Virginia running back Jeff Overton, 5'10.5", 187. He will visit, but also on campus that day for camp. If he gets an offer, he might just stay the weekend. And I'm anticipating him getting an offer because it is 6'1", 200-pound Blackville Hilda athlete Jaquel Holman. He ran 10.8 in the 100 meters at 6'1", 200 pounds. The Gamecocks like him as a linebacker. He plays running back and linebacker at Blackville Hilda. But Torian Gray, Clayton White, they've been by the high school. This is a guy that his dream school is South Carolina. If he gets an offer at camp, I expect him to commit on the spot. They may wait and bring him in another weekend when you have more uncommitted guys, or he could stay over for an official that weekend. Okay, on June the 7th, 5-star defensive end Isaiah Gibson, 6'4", 240 from Warner Robins, Georgia, the number 17 player in the country. Okay, he's currently committed to Southern Cal, but he is going to take a slate of SEC visits and Florida State as well. The Gamecocks in the mix here. 4-star Atlanta cornerback, Jonte Gilbert. We've been talking about him forever. He was committed to Ohio State. Okay, he is a top 150 player. Torian Gray has been on him forever. Could be a corner, could be a nickel, could be a safety, but a 4-star guy the Gamecocks love. I think South Carolina may be the favorite going into the business. 4-star defensive tackle Kevin Wynn, 6'3", 320 from Greensboro, Georgia, now the number 54 player in the country. Gamecocks are going to shoot their shot. I think Georgia is going to be really tough to beat. It seems like they're trying to sign every defensive tackle South Carolina offers. 4-star offensive tackle Juan Gaston, 6'7", 345, a mountain of a man. I saw him on the sidelines last year prior to the Kentucky game. He's from Westlake High School in Atlanta. same school as Raven Hollywood Johnson. I think Georgia's the team to beat here. 4-star corner from the DMV, Brandon Finney, 6'2", 185 from Owings Mill, Maryland. Number 220 nationally. The Gamecocks love him as a corner. Torian Gray leading the charge here. I think the Gamecocks definitely have a shot. Brian Rowe, now a 4-star wide receiver, 6 foot 170 from Concord, North Carolina. A phenomenal athlete. His stock's going to do nothing but rise. He's committed to you. He's in that weekend. 3-star linebacker A.J. Holloway, 6'3", 225 from Buford, Georgia. I like where the Gamecocks are here. He's visiting Louisville on the May 31st. Gamecocks on the 7th. He may be ready to decide. Again, Clayton White leading the charge here. He really likes the Gamecocks. We'll see what happens. 3-star cornerback safety Christopher Hatfield from Lincolnton, Georgia, 6'3", 205. A big defensive back. Could grow into a linebacker even. Torian Gray really likes him. I don't know if South Carolina is going to push on the visit. If they do, they may be tough to beat. Okay, a couple recent additions to the June 7th weekend. That's tight end Preston Douglas, 6'4", 225 from Jupiter, Florida. Sean Elliott leading the charge here. I like the Gamecocks for him. And he's visiting on June the 7th. And then 3-star Roswell, Georgia defensive end edge Kobe Sakiyi Pra. Another player the Gamecocks like. They want to sign a lot of linebackers and edge guys in this class. He's visiting on June the 7th. South Carolina really likes him. Sterling Lucas leading the charge. And then June 14th. Right now, the only official visit scheduled, defensive tackle Bryce Jenkins, 6'5", 315 from Friendship Collegiate Academy in Washington, D.C., same school as Dylan Stewart. All right, some schools are recruiting him as an offensive lineman, but some schools are recruiting him as a defensive tackle. And I'm not saying he will be this guy, but he's about the same size as Jordan Davis from Charlotte, who South Carolina and others thought was an offensive lineman. Georgia recruited him as a big interior defensive lineman. He went there, redshirted, and the rest was history, and ended up being a first-round draft pick and an immovable force on the interior of Georgia's defensive line. All right, right now, June 21st, there are 11 guys scheduled for official visits, including a pair of 5-stars and 5-star linebacker Zayden Walker, 6'2", 225 from Schley County, Georgia. He is the brother of Gamecock incoming freshman corner Jalewis Solomon. A lot of people think South Carolina has taken the lead here. Okay, I think it's going to be South Carolina or Georgia. But South Carolina, they love Zayden Walker. And this could be a big-time pickup if they add another 5-star to the list. Okay, you also have 5-star cornerback Zamir Joseph, 6 foot, 170 out of Montvale, New Jersey, visiting that weekend. Torian Gray going all in on replenishing the cornerback room. You've already got one elite corner committed. You'd probably like to add 1 or 2 more elite corners. South Carolina has those players on the books for official visits in June. You've also got some commitments coming in that weekend. Anthony Addison, the 3-star edge from Sumter, 6'5", 215. He visits that weekend. Okay, you also have Jaden Sellers, a 3-star wide receiver, 6 foot 175 from South Florence, and the brother of quarterback Lenora Sellers visiting that weekend. You also have a guy who will probably be committed to you, but now Ohio State, Tennessee, and others really coming in on Gaffney, offensive tackle, Shed Surratt, 6'4", 290. You've got 3-star linebacker from the DMV, Justin Thompson, visiting that weekend. A guy that I love and feel like the Gamecocks are in the driver's seat for is edge Donovan Darden, 6'4", 215 from Havelock, North Carolina. He'll be in that weekend. A guy that you've been waiting on. He was supposed to commit. He came down for the spring game. He put it off. He's visiting on June the 21st. 4-star safety, Kendall Daniels. That could give South Carolina potentially 4 of the top 10 players out of the state of Virginia. You have 2 currently committed. You lead for Jalen Gilchrist, and I think you're still in pole position for Kendall Daniels, a former teammate of Fred J.R. Johnson. Okay, also 3-star safety who's committed to you, DeMarcus Leach from Abbeville, 6'3", 180. He visits. And then 2 more defensive tackles on the books. Eric Thomas, 6'5", 325 from Lehigh Acres, Florida, a recent offer by Travian Robertson. That's in the Tampa-St. Pete area. He will be in. And then junior college defensive tackle Xavier Hardy, 6'5", 285, currently slated to be in that weekend as well. So the Gamecocks trying to get on the board with more defensive tackles. Okay, you have 1 running back currently scheduled, at least 2 more running backs I expect to visit, and potentially a quarterback as well. So the visit list is not set, but I would expect Sean Quono from Clearwater Calvary Christian. He will come in for an official visit in June. Just don't know when it will be, but he should be in. Okay. Along with his teammate, Jershawn Newton, 6 foot 205, who's a quarterback. They're both at Calvary Christian in Clearwater, Florida. Marquell Blackwell, that's his old stomping grounds. He's issued those orders, and I would also expect Jaden Jackson, my personal favorite running back in this class, 5'11", 217 from Franklin, Texas. I would expect him to visit. So the summer of Shane is getting cranked up. We'll be all over it. Gamecocks still lead Arkansas 1-0. We're in the bottom of the second. More to end the week on Thursday and Friday, but that will be a wrap. So special thanks for today to my guest, Jordan Kaye, who always provides great insight. And we'll see where South Carolina ends up. Arkansas just got the leadoff man on. We'll be back tomorrow on Gamecock Pod Daily and on Friday to wrap the week. So until then, this is Keith Allsep saying God bless and go Gamecocks. Join us tonight for the Garnet and Black Town Hall. Until then, I am out of here.